to the Land Stories is back, and I am back with my guest, Wendy T, and we are going to be continuing and furthering a discussion uh, on parental estrangement and the aspect of this episode, which we'll call it part two, because I think that this is a topic that's going to kind of turn into a series because of the fact that there's so many areas to it. So, what we are going to be discussing today, maybe I'll just do a little follow up. Before I do my follow up, I want to say welcome and thank you for coming back and
Thank you
continuing
for
to have this discussion
mm,
because, um, as we realized in the last one, it's a difficult discussion to have. And when you are working through your process of healing from the, or grieving, same thing, healing from the estrangement, um, it's a process. And going through that process, sometimes it's hard to put verbiage in the verbal words into how we are feeling or experiencing that. So what we did realize in the previous conversation is the power in this conversation, in that, when you are able to put some words in validation to what your experience is and has been, it helps immensely with the healing process.
mhm.
So, thank you once again for returning. And this part of the discussion, we are going to be talking about the pathway to peace, finding your inner peace after finding your peace again, after the estrangement, after the because you just don't become estranged, folks. And for most of us that are experiencing this, we know that because we know that there has been a on it's been ongoing and for however long. And sometimes for some of this has been going on since their childhood on some level in terms of the what we'll call disconnect or the friction that you've been experiencing with this particular child, or sometimes it's more than one child, you know,
Mhm,
um, because, bigger families sometimes produce different issues.
mhm.
The other thing that we talked about is um, comparing the level of similarities between how we were raised and the effects that that may have had on our children, and also how we raised our children. That, you know what, sometimes that was, you don't you don't see that until you are going through it or you have come through it.
Yeah,
So, you know uh knowledge is power, and also wisdom. So that is why we are back here today.
yes.
And
Conversation too is powerful because you know what? When, like we talked on the last conversation about, you know, um, narcissistic children, narcissistic parents, I think we all have a certain degree of narcissistic tendencies in us. However, when you go back to the pathology of your upbringing and can look in on the situation now as opposed to when you're coming through it and you're just going through it. Sometimes you're going through the motions. Sometimes you're happy, you're sad, you're crying, you're not understanding what's going on. But when you become an adult and you look in on the situation and see right from your childhood how things and were sometimes very difficult, sometimes very good, you could see the narcissism in the family history.
Oh my God, that's definite. Like I mean, growing up in I'm going to call it toxic family. Also, not toxic, but definitely my mother carried narcissism. I experienced my mother's narcissism. So there is no doubt about it that that narcissism that was placed on me did have an effect on my
Yes,
parenting.
yes,
When I sit there and I think about it, and because I've had time to process this, even since our last live, and think about, you know, the fact that when I became a mother, looking back, oh, fuck, I thought I was ready. I thought, no, I had so much healing to be done. So I definitely know that my parenting did have an effect on my daughter's uh,
upbringing.
emotional,
Yes,
her, on her whole being.
yes.
Definitely.
Hello, Demita.
Hello, Janita. Welcome, welcome. So having the, but to acknowledge, knowing what needed to be changed in me. But there came a point where, you know what? Listen, one has to grab a hold of their own healing. And there was a point when I realized that, you know, I'm not responsible for my daughter's healing because, you know, I'm dealing with an adult or I'm dealing with a young adult because I don't even want to say, I don't even want to use teenager at that particular point
Yes,
because I
yes,
did feel very responsible, especially where I knew that I fucked up and, you know
yes,
what, tried to make my changes. However,
yes,
putting all of that together, it still leaves with the fact that, you know what, I'm responsible for my healing, she's responsible for her healing,
yes,
and you know what, it's also a place of accountability, and we become accountable not only for our own healing, but you know what, um yeah, you are responsible for your own healing. So
yes,
once I came to that particular point and realized that I that's what I was responsible for, the process became my healing throughout not just what had happened with me, but what had happened inside me and my daughter's relationship. It was only then that I could start to see things more clearly. I
yeah,
could start to see all sides to all stories.
yeah,
So you'd like to think and hope that, you know what, there can you that even she will come to that particular place. But here's the deal. Oftentimes, if it gets to that particular level, they get trapped in their story. They remain focused in their pain. They also, once they have tagged you as, they don't see anything beyond that. So it's a real important for you to separate yourself and do your own healing and not wait for that resolution or that closure or that, because you know what, it's not about them, it is about you.
no,
You find your closure, you find your resolve. And when I say resolve, you're often finding resolve to things that, you know what, there is no conversation. There has been no conversation. So you have to come to your own resolve. You have to come from, in order to find your own peace. Or if not, you stay in a state of waiting
mhm,
and hoping for
mhm,
resolution. And then, you know what,
yeah.
you don't grow. So today, hopefully, we will talk more about how it is that you start to move on past the grieving of what you no longer have.
Well, you
Or
know,
you know,
I think when you're talking about adult children cutting you off, there's a lot of, like you said, grieving processes, different things that happen, you go through the sad, the angry, the frustration, the tears, all of it. And you're in a state of why? What happened? What what's going on? You're my kid, why can't you talk to me? But then they look at it, well, doesn't matter what I say, you're always right. So they're still coming from sometimes they're coming from an adult standpoint, sometimes they're coming from a child standpoint. My point being is when they cut you off, you're left with the big question mark. Why? What did I do so wrong? You know, you give them
Well,
every
oh, and they cut you off, and I just want to say, because for me, I walked away. I knew that
yes,
I could no longer have a relationship with
yes,
someone who was not willing to take accountability,
yes, yes.
someone who was choosing to scapegoat and bypass conversations. You can't. The damage that had started to take place because of years of this, I want you to say, emotionally, mentally, physically with me, I had to. I had to
Heck,
so that I could,
yeah.
first of all, hello, hello, Diaz. Nice to see you again. And from Michigan, nice to see you, Michigan in the house. Listen,
Woo-hoo.
I've spent a lot of time in Detroit, so you know what? Detroit is very dear to my heart. Had many experiences living in Windsor and going to Detroit. So nice to see you, and thank you. And for wherever you're chiming in from. But I lost my point, where I was going with that. Anyways,
You walked
I
away from
do,
your child because,
yes,
yeah,
yes, for my own healing, for my
yeah,
own health, for my own wellness. Because to stay would mean that, you know what, I was going to be subject to um, her abuse, because that's
so,
exactly what it turned down to. And even the fact that, you know what, I had built up a relationship with my granddaughter,
yes.
that my staying, I knew would not, I would not have survived. I would have not survived because one of the things that she was using was my granddaughter and the
Yes.
threatening to take her away from me at any given point. And so I came to
Don't
my own resolve.
don't
And
you find it sad when they use the children as a pawn, the grandchildren? I
I
think it's
think
terrible.
I think, and I don't want to take away from this conversation because I always want to leave note to the fact that I do realize that there is times when one has to walk away,
Ye
and that
yes,
there are some extreme situations out there that, you know
yes,
what, you walk so that you can finally live.
yes,
So I must remember that we got to make note of that, because
mhm.
that's just as real to the conversation as the one that we are having.
You
However,
have you have a comment, Hilda?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I can relate with you, Hilda. I did the same with my mom. Not easy, but still love her absolutely from a distance. And
Mhm.
yeah. And what makes that one painful when you got to do that walk, or when you whether it's with your mother or whether it's with your sisters, because you know what, I'm going to tell you something. I've got that. When I tell you that the toxicity runs high, it runs high. But you know what? It is difficult because
Yes,
you are also grieving. Well, you're grieving relationships. You're also grieving someone that, you know what, if you're talking sisters, someone that knew you, someone that knew all of your stories.
yep,
But however, because of They chose one route, you chose another, which means, basically you chose to look at the truth of
Yes.
your upbringing. They chose to continue to feed into the toxicity by,
Yes.
you know, so
Yeah.
that becomes a whole nother level of grieving because it's not like, it's like even when I look at my mother, I can see my mother's story. I know her story. I understand why she was the way that she was. And at the same time, you know what? Here's the deal. At some particular point, she had an opportunity to do something different. When you realize what you're doing, you arrest. But if it listen, if the narcissism gets that bad, they do what's best for them. And
Mhm.
that's something that, I can look at my mom's story and I can also say, fuck no, your shit was not good enough, you know? So,
It's funny because I look at my biological mother, and she had children. However, her story was very sad and very difficult. So it explains everything that transpired down the line
mhm,
with the children that she had and chose not to take care of. I could see when I met her the narcissism,
mhm.
and it was very sad. However, when you look at parental,
How did you see it? What did you, I just out of curiosity, what did you see or what did you perceive if you want to go there?
um,
I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that, but
there was a particular incident that had come up that we had discussed, and I was quite intrigued with it. And it was finding my biological brother.
okay.
When I addressed it, she was not happy about it, did not want me to look for him. And I get that you're afraid. However, that's my choice. Your
Right.
choices you made. That's
But
my
it was
choice.
so much about what that would erupt for her. It was
Right.
so much about what it made her look like at that time. Even though because she was in her older age, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
And so we kind of butted heads a little bit, but that didn't stop me from doing what I had to do. I think that generation did not, they were such workhorses that they didn't stop to look at what they were doing intentionally because in different cases, big families, you've got parents working and or single parents looking after children and just going and going and going and not realizing some of the things or traits that they're doing. And I think that generation, Hilda, didn't process things like we process.
oh,
They just kept
God no.
going on to get along to do what they had to do to make ends meet because
And
it
they certainly don't have all the labels. They did not have all the labels that we have now, nor did they have the information that we have now. nor did they have the conversations. I'm not negating from, but you know what? We could have started identifying some of this shit and putting some labels onto it, because I think that at some particular point, if I had known about narcissism, fuck, growing up in my home, do you know how much that could have helped me? Do you
Yeah,
know how much that could have helped me? And it
yeah,
certainly would have helped in the relationships that I had with my siblings, like in
yeah,
my later life. But
yeah,
it wasn't until my later life that I was able to put the pieces together. But that was only from when I had to look at myself. I had to look at, patterns. I had to look at, what, do the full. So, that's the power of the universe.
yes,
What
yes.
do we have here? Okay.
You know, I look at my dad. My dad, God rest his soul, I loved my dad, same as I loved my mom. But my dad, oh, true narcissist. But I look at his upbringing and that pathology he had.
Now, these
Very,
are your adoptive parents, too, that we're talking about.
yes. However, um, you get to learn that they have a story, and they're
Yes.
come from a place of dysfunction
Mhm.
and abuse and alcoholism, and when you've got those factors that are hidden because they don't deal, because
Mhm.
back then you didn't talk about stuff like that. Everything was pushed right under the carpet.
A
So
lot of
when
masks were being worn. This is, because you know what, you don't tell what goes on inside this home. So it was very easy to wear a mask. And also the way that society looked at children to be seen and not heard. So it was able to keep a lot of things under wraps. And God helped the one that was speaking up, because they were brutalized. No different than now, that if you are
yeah,
the truth
yeah,
teller, the one that starts speaking things out,
yeah,
they oftentimes, those in your family unit do not like that. They do not like, because it exposes so many other things.
yeah. And why would you say such lies? Well, I'll take it back to my dad for an instance. I saw his glimpse, certain things he would say, certain times he would talk about stuff, and I knew that it was not a wonderful place. However, I saw his narcissistic traits
Right.
were passed down to me. And
Yes.
I, like you said, if we had have had some kind of knowledge about this, would we have done something different? I would like to say yes. You know, I know that I made a lot of mistakes as a individual and as a parent. However, I'm looking on the other side of it now and seeing I don't stare at it because I have, and it can take you to a very sad, dark place.
And I think
I,
you do have to look at it. And
yeah,
sometimes I think you have to set into the sadness too.
yeah,
Because you know what? It's the very thing that, what, the very thing that we keep avoiding will be the very thing that keeps creeping up. And I think that, what, when I sit there and I look at my uh, and I will call it my level of narcissism, of where I may have had it coming up in terms of the raising of my daughter. Because when you sit there and you think about narcissism, it does come from a place of fear.
sure.
Place of fear. It's
The
you're fearful,
narcissist,
fearful of many different things. And when I sit there and I think about in the raising of my daughter, probably the pressures I did put on her because of being fearful about what other people thought. the fearful of always fearful of losing her. I was always fearful of losing her. And
Yeah. And when you're coming with from a place of fear all the time,
yes, yes.
how are you functioning?
If that is the one thing that you have not identified or you haven't spoken to.
Yes. You know, like in my case, I have 3 different individuals. And, the same thing, the pressures I put on, I'll say, for instance, my oldest, you know, I can look at it and know that I've done a lot of wrong. However, for me, I've done a lot of healing. And now, where do I go from here? Here's where I go. I look at myself and learn that I'm good. I'm content with my life. I'm happy with my significant other. I get my solitude from nature. I get my solitude and grounding from being out listening to nature, listening to the birds, watching the hummingbirds, watching nature grow. That's how I heal my soul. Because sometimes our adult children can be very um, hurtful.
But I think that that's coming from the place of things that are not healed. So
Yeah.
I just want to go back to something because I think that the journey, it's not one that is finished.
No.
When I sit and I think about, what's needing to be healed is something that's coming from generations.
Yes.
And that, what, it's through my acknowledgement or your acknowledgement. Because there are things, you got to go back and you got to look at that. Why was I so, and
Yes.
why were these the times that I was overreacting? And
Yes.
reflecting that back and doing that mirror, I think that
Yes.
that can be the difficult process to think, because you know what, you think you were at the time, I was thinking, you know what, I was coming from a place of love, and my love was coming from a place of fear.
And
My love
broken.
was also coming from a place of having been abandoned. And you know what? And making sure, I hope that that was not going to happen inside my family unit.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, if I had that more healed and had that more in balance, I think that that definitely would have had a better effect
Now it's
in
funny because
raising. If I'd have had my been more balanced with that,
you
more
touched
healed.
yes, you touched on something, Hilda, abandonment.
Yes.
Um, Abandonment, I believe, I know in my own situation, when you're adopted and you're not with your biological mother, whatever circumstances may be, that's abandonment.
Mhm.
You don't understand it as a young child. Then when you grow up and become teenager, you struggle a lot with it. Then you become an adult. And like you said, with our own children, sometimes they feel abandoned
Mhm.
in their own um, growing up. I have a child like you Go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry. I want to say this. One of the things that you would say to me through a lot of our conversations was I didn't fit in. I never really fit in. I never fit in. And that was you were also, you know what? Um, and then there was things shown to you of where you didn't. That's
Yes.
where that, and there wasn't that. Well, I don't want to go get into your story because I'm not a party to parts of your story, but I just want to make acknowledgement to that because I think that that's something that, you know what, when I sit back and I look at my daughter, she didn't feel like she fit in at some particular point. So anyway, and nor did I feel like I fit into my family. So I don't want to make this just about. I don't want to make this about my daughter, but I do have to keep making the references back and forth
Reference
to
back
give
and
the
forth.
bigger parts of the picture. So you will hear me talk about my daughter, you will hear me talk about me, or you will hear me talk about my mother.
Right,
Because that's how I keep this motherfucking story straight. Because you know what? The shit is real.
right. Yes,
And you know
yes.
what? So is the
The
healing
same,
process.
you know what? We've had conversations the same as I can identify with you with my daughter.
Yes.
Probably never felt that she fit in.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how much I tried and would do,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because she was still coming from a place of abandonment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I would often experience that is rejection. I felt that as rejection because you know what? I was hadn't healed my own wounds. I hadn't healed my own pain. So a lot of what took place, I was taking very much her personal,
Mhm.
as opposed to but I can make sense of that today, sorting
Yeah,
through my
because we're
process.
grown. We have the tools, we have the knowledge, we have the experience that, and
Well,
we
you
want to
know
make
what?
that.
It's about continuing to heal because
Yeah,
I don't think it's about being grown. Because you know what? You have 60, 70-year-old unhealed people who are acting like, you know what? I'm going to tell you something, having tantrums like
yes,
2-year-olds or
yes,
however, an 8-year-old, wherever
yes,
the stage of development stopped. So,
yeah.
you know, I think that the route to finding my peace is also continuing to acknowledge and go through the process of my healing and
Yes,
acknowledging what needs to be. So,
yes.
and the reason why I say that it is not about the age thing, just that we have a lot of
Well, I was
um,
talking from my experience, not anybody else's,
and that's
just from
another thing, you know what? Because we are two different people, and even though we may have similar experiences, and we're also at different parts of our journey. So here's
Mhm.
my question to you: Is this what is it that you do or are doing at this particular point to help you through the process of having no contact? Because you know what, your family are in a proximity of you. So it was something that you brought up in the last live, is that you know what, you heard things about your grandchildren and that bothered you because you heard them exterior to someone else. And so
Mhm.
that's a part of the process that happens with the cutoff, that you know what, these grandchildren that you know what, you have loved, held, nurtured, d- fed, all these different things, and that you've also had a chance to be uh you do better with them because number one, you have more experience, and you have done some work on yourself. Your children see this, and I think they also get very envious of that they get resentful. Well, why could you not do that with me? But my whole point being is that that relationship that is not there, because I know that it was there. How do you, what is it that you do to
Move on.
move on or grieve that? Yeah. How is your process? Or where are you at with your process? That's a loaded question, and I'm
Or
sorry because
like,
I should let you
you
know.
know, I'll tell you, I think about my children.
Yeah, yeah.
I think about my girls. I think about my grandchildren, and I love them with my heart and soul, like you do yours. However, for me, first of all, I don't go anywhere where I'm not wanted,
Mhm,
and I put a lot of time into myself and my spouse. I go in my garden where I'm most happy, and I think. And when situations come up that are hard, I work through it.
mm,
I cry, I get angry, I scream, I ask why. But once I release all of that, an emotional release,
mhm,
I know that I'm able to say, okay, I had a moment, but that moment's not going to define who I am
mhm,
or how I continue with my healing or my day or my journey. It's not going to identify me. And I spend a lot of time in nature because nature heals the soul. We don't realize how much we have to be thankful for with the air we breathe, the noises we hear, the trees, the flowers, all of that brings joy to me. And that's how continue to heal my soul and spend time with my significant other who I adore, evolving myself with positive people like yourself,
yes.
and doing things that make me feel happy, not having to have expectations or demands put on me as a mother, as a
Mm,
grandmother, as anybody. I just take the time, I reflect, but I also know that I'm okay with things. Not to say I wouldn't like things to be different, however, they're not. And so today, that's okay.
Do you know what grief is?
Pardon me?
Do you know what grief is?
Yes.
And I say that because grief is a manifestation of love that has no place to go.
Yes.
I love. So you had love. There was love there.
Hmm.
The fact that you were grieving it. So
Yes.
my point being is so it's you know what, and one of the things that you know what I like you, my garden, my plants, nature, oh my huge stabilizer, my animal. I put that love into, and I also put it into people
Yes.
who, you know what, have chosen to understand me, not misunderstand me.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
People who see my quality. So
Yes.
I channeled it into the places and that and I continue to have to rechannel it when it comes up because
Yes.
when I have those hard moments, like when I think about my granddaughter and I think about, you know what her voice sounds like right now, what her walk looks like right now, how she might be bouncing in the room, and if it was like her mother, I allow myself to go through that process and then I bring myself back to the acceptance of where I'm at because I also realize this, and I tell myself this too, is that My granddaughter didn't choose not to have a relationship with me.
No.
It's her mom who chooses to keep her away from me.
Yeah.
So I just, in that, if at some particular point, if my granddaughter should ever remember, if she should ever remember, she will do what she wants to when she becomes of the age. And
Yep.
if I am still here, hope I am. And if it should happen, but here's the resolve, I'm okay if it
Yes.
doesn't,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
because life is filled with experiences. And
Mhm.
boy, oh boy, I've had a hell of a one, but one I would never, ever. I wouldn't take it back. I wouldn't take it back one day,
Yes.
because everything happens for its reason. And Diaz has a question. How would you handle their passing, knowing you stepped away and was no longer in communication? That's the thing. That's one of the things that, you know what, I'm going to tell you. You're already dealing with the death right now. There is like a death that's taken place.
That's
So
the key.
I
Yes.
can hold on to I can hold on to the feeling of, oh my God, what if that happens? And or I can say this, that, and not that life moves on. I will then mourn, or probably continue to mourn what's not there. It's just that
Yes.
now it's gone in the physical. Now it's
Because
gone in the physical.
when your kids cut you off, your adult children cut you off, you are mourning. It's
Yes,
like you're deaf because what used to be is no longer.
yes.
So you're mourning it, and you go through the grieving process, and it hits you in stages at different times. Like I said, it hit me today. It may not affect me tomorrow, but it is a grieving process, and you're still going through the grieving process. In Diaz's case, you know, they've lost a child or adult or whatever the circumstances. So they're still grieving.
Giaz, you're welcome. And just as you said, you're still grieving. But I will tell you this, that I have thought even about my mother. If my mother were still alive, what would that look like? Because my mother would be in her 90s. And it was well said that, what, well, someone's going to be looking after her. She's not going into no home. And I definitely am at that result where that person wouldn't be me. I can tell you that if my mom was here, because I thought about this, no, it's because of all the dynamics. So my, because I think that my mom would have just become a deeper version of what she already was. Because
Mhm.
my mom, even up to the point of her death, was unwilling to look at her shit and deal with her shit.
Probably, yes. Probably at that particular point in time, too, Hilda, your mother, that was the last thing on her mind.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what was on
I
her
don't either.
mind.
I can't
But
speak
you know
for.
what? Um, I just know that, as I said, this it's stuff that has shown up in generations. I believe that everything is already predestined before we arrive here. So all my experience of growing up in the household I did, all of that shit I chose, even my experience with my daughter. This is what I believe. And I believe that, what, certain things, all these things happen because there's generational shit that needs to be healed. And that, what, individuals tried, maybe in previous generations, fell short. So what kept showing up, and what I said, or what I acknowledged. So I wouldn't take any of that back, as I said.
No.
I'm going to
No.
keep on my journey.
Yes.
Um, I I am so loving that we are having this conversation. It is healing to my soul. Now, if you want to see you now, this is what's going to make me cry because I can finally have the conversation. And even now, when I'm trying to formulate the words and it's still coming out, you know what? I'm still putting my pieces together. But you know what? For so long, I was silenced
I
in
know.
my pain.
Yes.
And spirit said, "Mm-mm, I did not bring you here for that. I
No.
didn't bring you this far. You must continue to speak." So
Yes.
I had to deal with my own shit. I had to deal with my own ego and continue to deal, and I need to continue to heal.
Yes.
And the greatness is that you know what? I woke up and I have had this opportunity to do it. And that you know what? I didn't expire. And for everything that may have been coming at me and everyone coming at me, I'm still here,
Well, I can
stronger.
remember a certain conversation we had, and you were really in a deep, deep thought.
Mm-hmm.
And you started expressing to me
Mm-hmm.
everything that had been in your mind for quite some time that you just didn't verbalize.
Mm-hmm.
Once you got that out, that was the beginning of your healing, more healing, to be able to verbalize it. Because a lot of the times, I don't know, I know myself, I can get caught up in my head with different scenarios, different grandchildren, different times with my children, and it can be just so much that your head gets full. When you got to experience and express it, it was such an emotional release for you. And then you said, I needed to do this. I needed to get this off my chest, out of my head,
Well,
out
what
of
I
my.
found is that I was angry.
Yes.
I woke up one day angry, angrier than what I had been. I had me some triggers. It had been my daughter's birthday. It was not only her birthday, but before that, I just had my granddaughter's birthday. Then my daughter's birthday. Then Mother's Day. All these three things, and you know what? I've been in my head processing them and continuing to. And as I said, it just the anger came from all the things I didn't get to say,
Yes.
all the things. So I think that that is also a stage that, and I knew that okay, you can't keep this shit in. You gotta let
Oh,
this out. You gotta
yes.
deal with this so that
Yes.
you can go on and be and integrate it. Integrate this shit. You know what? Do not let it rule you. But and I'm still in that process, folk. Listen, I am when I tell you I'm coming to you is real and is raw and is open. And I'm doing it because you know what? I know I am not the only one out there. But I will tell you what, I'm here. I will continue to show up. I will continue to show up. So even when I go away, and you know what, I'm going to tell you something. You don't see me. No, I'm going to show up again. That means
Mm-hmm.
I'm just calibrating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But my whole point being is thank you, universe. Thank you, and thank everyone that showed up in the chat. And Diaz says, "Me too. I want to heal from all the generational toxicity." Absolutely.
Yes, bravo. You know what? You will, 1 minute at a time, 1 minute at a time, and make sure you always love yourself first.
Oh, I think
Right?
she loved herself. I
Right
think
on.
Diaz loves herself. You know what? That's a journey that can be challenging because
Yeah.
that's the challenging one. And you know
Yeah.
what? Like I said, depending on what you've experienced and depending on what your nervous system is going through and how healed it is, you know what that can be one that whew, you know um you battle with. But
Yeah.
we are going on 7 minutes past the hour. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we um
I don't
leave
think
this
so.
conversation. Thank you for sharing your stories. Well, no, thank you for, well, listen, as I said, there's a whole greater purpose, you know, um, and it's what I call the rippling effect of healing. That, you know what, when I share and and I heal, it has a rippling effect. But it's having the courage too, because it does take courage.
It does.
So
Thank you,
go ahead.
Diaz.
Thank you too. Thank you. So, and having said that, was there anything else that you wanted to share?
Other than make a great day.
And you know what's funny? Yeah, I want to say this to you, that you know what you said to me. I'm nervous, and I said, well, it's a good thing if you're nervous. That
Mhm.
means that, you know what, that's something's real,
Yes,
right? So,
yes.
anyways, I want to thank you. Um, I think you will be coming back. Would you
Oh,
like?
if you'll have
Would you?
me, I'll be back.
I would love to have you
Sure.
back. As I said, this is not just a conversation that can be had, because,
No.
as I said, there are stages to this, and it
Mhm.
depends on what stage you are in. And
Right?
sometimes, you know what, I'm going to tell you something. Some people can stay stuck into a stage, and that stage of
Almost like a paralyzation.
well, yeah, because they're not in acceptance. They're not in acceptance of what's happening. So if you are stuck in that stage, it's going to look a different way.
Yes.
So, and we get where we're at. Knowledge is power, and you know, if I and you are a teacher, because I think we can all become teachers when we are ready to share our experience, and but the main thing is that you do your work, because if
Mhm.
you don't do your work and you're trying to share, then guess what, you're just putting some bullshit out there. No,
Right.
seriously, you're putting
Yeah, I
some
get it.
you're putting some bullshit out there. So
Yeah.
um, I'm going to stay authentic. I'm going to keep showing up. And I want to thank you, Miss Wendy T. And we will be back with another episode that is dealing and surrounding the topic of estrangement. And I just don't want to I don't want to just say that this is going to be with our children, because if you study this and you look at it, and if there is levels of toxicity, then you know that it didn't just begin in your unit, that it began in your family's unit. And
Mhm.
so you just realize that this is it's a part of a bigger picture. So, as I said, with that, there is stages. So, having said that, we're going to come back. I'm not sure exactly what we will be tackling with the next one, but know this: it will be furthering the conversation, and you know, uh, we will be live. So, I thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Hilda C.
You know what? My pleasure. My pleasure. My pleasure. And thank everyone out there.
Yes.
Make a great Wednesday, because it's getting brighter here. The sun is shining. Yeah, I got on my jean coat because you know what? It's been freezing. Well, not freezing, but no, we've had
Oh,
rain, and we need it. Garden's
yes.
doing good. I'm gonna do
Yes.
a video on my garden pretty soon, so be looking
Very
for
good.
that, folks. So as well, I will be going live with Revney, who you all know me or you all know Revney. She is my co-host that we do our weekly live, and we are back doing them, and we will be discussing the topic now. I have to look at this one, because anyways, I'll put it in the chat. But anyways, we're going to be back with another powerful conversation, and that will be Saturday, June 26th or 7th. Is it the 27th? I think it's the 27th. Saturday, June 27th, and that will be at 11:30 as well, 11:30 a.m. So if you can come on out, join in that conversation, and because it's going to be another powerful one. In the meantime, make a great day. Bye.
Bye bye.